has produced and published several of her books. She is actually a keynote speaker about leadership, how to be a good leader, and at the same time, some points about her business. She is also a CEO of her own company. Now, she said that for good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, debate. So in this world here on Earth, it wouldn't be really perfect for us to come up with brilliant ideas if not for debate. So again, the purpose of debating is not really just to come up with one idea. Even if sometimes you hear a motion that's totally negative, there are always two sides of that topic or motion. So just like a coin, you see a head and a tail in a coin. That's the same thing with debating. Once you hear or you see a motion or a topic, do not come up with a conclusion right away that, oh, I feel negative about this. I want it to be negative. Because sometimes if you do that, sometimes you don't really have a choice. Even if you're really against the motion or the topic, sometimes in a debate, the judge or either the people, behind that event will actually assign you to do a specific debate wherein you don't have any choice but to go to that side. For example, if you're too negative about the topic, the person might assign you to be on the positive or the proposition team. If you're too positive about it, then the person might assign you to the negative side or the opposition team. So sometimes you don't have any choice because sometimes you just have to toss a coin for you to, come up with your own side, or it's either you choose your side. But most of the time you cannot choose your side. It totally depends on maybe your leader in the group. That's number one. Or maybe the management, who's doing who's managing the debate competition, something like that. Now, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the things that we should never say or do during a debate. So the first thing that I want to emphasize on, whenever there is a topic, okay, so you have to come up with your ideas, your explanation as to why you disagree or agree with the topic and produce your arguments about it. Okay, so there are things that we should avoid because it's a big no and it will be a big, like a drop in our score. The judge might be able to give a huge deduction on your point on your side as a proposition or the opposition team if you have violated some of the very basic rules in a debate competition. So first we have don't attack another person. Okay, so this is really very important because sometimes some people would say that, well, I think the reason why your arguments are lame, it's because you are lame. You're not cool. Your arguments are not cool. And it seems that you have no sense. It also makes sense that your arguments have no sense because you're a useless person. You're a senseless person. That is a big no-no. It's not good because you're attacking the person instead of the arguments. So you can say, well, it seems that the arguments presented by the opposition side or by the proposition side are pure semantics. When we say semantics, that means that these are just purely, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make any sense. The explanation is not good, and it doesn't really have relevance to the issue that we are discussing. So that's the meaning of semantics. You can use that as well. But do not ever say that this person talking beside me, Your Honor, this person talking beside me, Mr. Chair, Miss Chair, is totally a bluff, totally a joke. He doesn't even know how to make good arguments. So why is he even here? Why is he even debating? Do not say that, okay? Again, we are clashing our ideas. We are not clashing against each other as people or as persons. We're only clashing because we have arguments that we have presented and we don't totally agree with what the person is saying. But it doesn't mean that we don't agree because the person is our nemesis or our enemy or our foe. Okay, even if you have personal grudge with that person, set that aside and focus on the arguments. Focus on what he or she is saying, okay? That's the very first rule. And then the second, again, while I'm talking, if you have any thoughts or questions, you can go ahead and ask me questions, okay? Please proceed by telling me your name and, of course, your question, all right? The second one is don't generalize, exaggerate, or be sarcastic, okay? This means that whenever someone is rebutting or whenever someone is telling his or her arguments, then sometimes we tend to say some words that might over-exaggerate some of our points, okay? Like, for example, the topic is about abortion. about babies and, like teenage pregnancy and wanted pregnancy. It's best for mothers to, at an early age of pregnancy, around 1 or 2 weeks, to, make the baby like not live. Okay, so some of the people would say that as their arguments, they would say, well, it's best that we abort the baby because the mother will not be able to, like have a beautiful life. The mother will not have a beautiful life. The mother might die. So you conclude right away to the fact that the mother will die even without producing too many reasons behind that, behind that fact that you're saying or behind that opinion that you're saying. So it's really best not to come up with a very exaggerated conclusion right away, because sometimes even if we don't have a very good life, we can still survive. We don't die right away. So that is exaggeration, right? And sometimes we tend to be sarcastic, with our opinions or with our thoughts. And what usually happens is that we say that, oh, right, when we talk about abortion, it's killing. And when you kill someone, it's bad because you're a murderer. And when you're a murderer, oh my God, you go to hell. So that's not a very good argument, okay? Because you're trying to be really sarcastic with your arguments. And sometimes when you rebut it the way that person said it, the way that person said his or her arguments, you might sound sarcastic because of what you're saying, okay? So don't do that. And then do not generalize. When we say generalize, it means that whenever you're going to be like saying something, you tend to actually, like focus on one thing only without thinking about the other bits of the arguments that the person is saying on the other team, like your opponent is saying. So if your opponents are telling you a lot of things, you really need to make sure that you have a pen and a paper or a notebook with you and jot down as many arguments and rebuttals or points that the other person is telling. Do not generalize right away and come up with a conclusion of what he is saying, even though he is not yet done. So meaning you have to be very keen, very attentive to what the opponent is saying, to what your opponent is saying within that, that time frame. For example, if his speech would last for 7 minutes, Miss, is it okay if I will not listen for the first minute? Is it okay if I just listen at the second minute, third minute, fourth minute? No, you have to listen at the entirety of the conversation, of the speech of that speaker. Because one false move of not being able to recognize one of his arguments will be a huge deduction on your part. You have to really rebut as many points as he said, as much as possible on your time frame the moment you speak after that person, after your opponent. Okay? So make sure that you don't generalize. So when the person will say that, well, it's killing. When you abort a baby, it's killing. And it's not good because you take the life of an innocent person. You take the life of an innocent baby, and it's not good. So like some of the arguments tend to be very general. Okay, so you have to really explain, because sometimes science does not define abortion as killing. Okay, so there are different terms here. If ever you're the first speaker on the proposition or the government side, it's best that you define the motion well. Okay, what is emotion? Emotion is the topic itself. For example, this house believes that abortion should be banned or must be banned. That's the motion. How do you define the motion? Define some terms in that topic that it is difficult for people to understand, for the viewers to understand, for the people listening at the debate, in our debate, to understand. So for example, when we say abortion, what does it mean? Define it. When we say ban, what does it mean? Define it. You have to define the words in that motion that are difficult to understand, especially for the viewers who are not really, medically knowledgeable or whatnot. And then, of course, if ever the first speaker on the positive or on the government side or on the proposition team is not able to really define the motion well, or has not really defined the motion at all, that means the first speaker on the opposition or the negative team can challenge the definition provided by the first speaker. For example, if the first speaker on the government side or the proposition team will say, this house believes that abortion should be banned or must be banned. Mr. Chair, and honors of this most august occasion, I would like to present to you the meaning of the word abortion and ban. First, when we say abortion, it is merely killing a baby. Even if it is the first stage of abortion, even if it's just the first 2 weeks, we have the process of not really calling it a baby yet, but a zygote or an embryo. So this simply means that when we talk about this stage, it is already killing because this person already has a life, this kind of, cell already has a life. That's why it's called cell, because it has a life. That's why it's killing. Now, when we say ban, we have to really stop people from killing these innocent lives, even if at a very early stage. Okay, for example, that's the sentence or the meaning, or should I say the definition given by the first speaker on the proposition or the government side. Now, the first person on the opposition or the negative side can challenge that definition. Okay, it doesn't mean that when the person says this one, you have to stick on that premise alone. Okay, the first person on the opposition team can definitely challenge that and say that, okay, Mr. Chair, Miss Judge, or like Your Honor, I would suggest that I want to challenge the definition given by the first speaker before me on the government side. Being the first person here in the opposition team, I think she was not able to define the word abortion well. So let me define it for the sake of others to understand what really is abortion, because it is not killing. It is actually a matter of, let's say, having something be taken out from the mother's womb, because it is a matter of telling or to know if it is, like something that could harm the mother, then of course it's something dangerous for her. So when we talk about the cell, it doesn't even mean that when we say cell, it has life on it yet. Because the moment that a person, the moment that a cell will grow and it has life on it is the moment the person has complete organs, the heart, the liver, and everything. If that cell has not complete organs yet and it's not totally formed yet, I don't think that is killing. It's just taking away the process of removal, and that's it. Something like that. So you can just challenge it as much as you can. Okay, if you don't agree with the definition. All right. Now, do not generalize is what I mentioned. So always observe all the bits that were presented by your opponent. Okay, so don't come up with a conclusion right away that you will not able, or you are not able to really listen a lot to what the previous person has able to mention or has said. Okay. And then next is don't start it off as a know-it-all. So it's not good for you to act as if you know a lot of things, even if you know a lot of things, even if this is not your first time to join a debate competition. Do not start your speech by saying, I have been doing this for 20 years. I have been doing this for 30 years. I have been the consistent champion in our school for the past 4 or 5 years. And I totally know what I'm doing. So at the end of the day, Your Honor, I know I'm going to win this debate. I know my team will win this debate. I'm sorry to say. So you're actually bragging, and it's not good because, again, we base our judgment based on your arguments plus your counter arguments or your rebuttals, okay? And then we have never use ultimatums or threats. Of course, some people usually would use this. Like, for example, if ever the opponents coming from the opposition team will win this debate, I think that the people here in this debate competition really are not that knowledgeable enough to define what a good debate is. If, Your Honor, you will let them win, it's not good, because that means you're giving like a conclusion, a negative conclusion, letting people know that even if you do not win, even if other people will win, you will not accept defeat, you will not accept failure, because for you failure is not an option. It's not good, right? So always be a good sport. Okay, but of course, either way, a person can win, even if you are the proposition or the opposition team, as long as you have provided very good arguments and very good substantiation, plus very good rebuttals. And then we have don't be disrespectful. This actually, leads to the next one, which is don't interrupt. Sometimes when we raise points or question, okay, like the POIs, so we say question or point, and then the other person will say yes. And then when you're already speaking, and then again, you only have 1 minute to ask your question, to give your point to the other person. So it's not good that after you ask your question and the other person will try to explain or rebut what you said, and then automatically you're going to talk again while he's talking. It's not good, okay? Respect the person because you had your time to speak. Now it's time for you to listen after you speak, after you give your question. If you have another question, you have to let the speaker, your opponent who's talking, to finish his explanation and rebuttal against your question before you ask another question again, okay? And then don't raise your voice or hit the caps lock key, okay? The same thing. Whenever we're rebutting, it's not good that we shout, okay? We can shout for emphasis, but not all the time. because it's not going to be good for the ears, okay? Like, for example, as I have said, abortion is not killing. It's just a matter or the process of removing a fetus or removing a cell from the mother's womb because it's an early stage. Are you not listening? It's not good, okay? So just keep your calm voice, and then maybe you can shout a little bit for just, some word, just one word that you want to emphasize, but not really to the extent of screaming so loud that people will not be able to hear what you're saying well, and it's not going to be pleasant for the ears of everyone, right? And then never walk away until it's over. So no retreat, no surrender, okay? We are debating because we believe that there is a certain argument that needs to be heard, and that we believe in that argument because we have done sufficient research. We have studied a lot about that topic, and we know that we have a say, and we know that we could possibly win it. It's just a matter of, having that argument be relevant and having that argument be accepted, and being able to maybe encourage the people around you, the viewers, especially the judge, to feel the kind of stand you have for that debate, and to feel why you should win for that debate. That's why you need to really make sure that you persuade the judge, persuade the audience to listen, and to really understand your point, so that the judge will say, oh, they're going to win because of this. I'm persuaded because of this. Okay? So that's the aim of this debate, for you to really win. Do we have any questions so far? Any questions about the first slide about things you should never say or do during a debate? Anyone? No questions? Okay. Do not be afraid or shy to ask any questions, all right? Okay. And please tell me if you have any clarification, all right? Now, the next part I want to talk about is the three main parts. Okay? So we have assertion, we have reasoning, and we have evidence. When we talk about assertion, this means that it is the premise or the motion itself that we're talking about. So for example, this house believes that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all sorts of social media platforms are only bringing negative effects to people, not positive. So that is assertion. That is the premise. That is the motion. The next part is the reasoning. So why do you believe in that? Why do you believe that social media platforms only bring negative effects to people and not positive? So you're going to be giving a reason. So we believe social media platforms, using them will only be negative or detrimental for people because people will be addicted to using them, and people will no longer have the focus both at school and at work. The reasons for this are the following. So you have to provide your evidence, your substantiation, okay? Not only the reason, but the substance behind that, the rationale behind that, the reason behind everything. There should always be the reason, a reason behind everything. Just like, for example, why did your boyfriend leave you? Because he said that I'm not good for him. Why did he say that, you're not good for him? Because he said I don't have time for him. Why did he say you don't have time for him? Because he said I'm always busy with work. Why do you say that you're always busy with work? There's always a reason behind everything. There's always a why behind everything. So, of course, there's a why, and then there's an evidence. Okay? So, for example, when we say evidence, you can say that, for example, 9 out of 10 people who use Facebook are no longer being able to finish their household chores. Even if their parents would require them to help in cleaning the dishes, cleaning their room, they cannot do so because they always spend the entire day in using it, and they're no longer focused people. Okay, they already have a decline in productivity both at school, at house, at home, and at work. So that is your evidence. Again, we have different types of evidence. We have contemporary examples. When we talk about contemporary examples, these are examples in our status quo. When we say status quo, that means in our present or in our current situation. The things you have observed right now happening in your neighborhood, the things you have observed right now happening on the news, current affairs type of news, and the things that are happening around the world that were proven to be negative or detrimental are some things you can put up as evidence. It can be not only contemporary examples, there are other examples like scientific examples. There are other examples based on surveys. These are kinds of examples you can use to support the evidence that you're saying, to support your claim. Otherwise, if your motion or if your argument that you're presenting to me or to any type of judge without sufficient evidence is not considered as an argument, but rather it's an opinion. So what's the use of you telling people, letting people listen to you and, asking the judge to believe in you if you don't have sufficient evidence? But then again, when we talk about evidence, it's not good for you to present all facts. It's good that you can present some facts, but not too factual. Why? What's the use of debating, or what's the use of having another opponent, an opposition team against your side if you're always going to provide, factual facts to that person? How will they be able to rebut the things you said if ever you're just providing pure facts about, the motion or about the topic or about the premise? So of course, they will not be able to rebut that against you, against what you said. So please make sure that when you're providing your arguments, always make sure that you don't really provide pure facts. A little bit of facts and then some surveys maybe, and then also some contemporary examples. I think that would make the debate really exciting. Okay? So those are our three main parts of our arguments. So I have some prepared, some other, topics that we have here, random debate topics that we have here. And then let's try to see how we can come up with these three main parts of an argument, okay? So let's have the first one. So the first topic that I have here is, this house believes that, okay, we're going to go to that part. So before we go to that part, so for example, the topic is, this house believes that dating for people who are 18 years old below should not be approved by parents. Again, this house believes that dating for people aged 18 below should not be approved by parents. Okay, so now if I'm going to be the proposition or the positive side, and then if I present the three main parts of an argument, just like what I mentioned earlier, we have assertion, reasoning, and evidence, then maybe I could say, I totally believe that it's not good for people who are 18 below, let's say around 17 years old and below, to be dating someone. Their parents should totally not approve it and agree with it, because if ever these people, let's say for example, if you're a minor, if you're 11 years old and you're already having a crush and you like your crush so much and your crush likes you in return. So what's going to happen is this kind of children might be they might fall in love at a very early age. And when they fall in love, what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to control their emotions, to control their feelings. So they're going to be doing something that is, that should never be done. And maybe they're going to be doing, prohibited things like making love. So what's going to happen if they make love? There will be teenage pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies. And then, of course, how will they be able to support themselves? I think this is the part where abortion comes in too. So there are a lot of reasons that we could come up with. So always make sure that you have evidence for that. Okay? So now let's go to the third slide. Any questions from you guys? You can, say question. Any points or question coming from our audience? I think we have a total of 23 people here in our team who joined our class here, our debate class. Okay, for this, we are actually here on Google Meet. So any questions from you guys? None? None so far? Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. And then we have here things that we need to avoid in an argument. So same thing. Just like what I mentioned earlier, the first one is truism. When we talk about truism, an argument that is too factual, it doesn't allow, the opponent to rebut against the things you said because it's too factual. How can you rebut against something that is already proven true over the course of time? So it doesn't make sense, okay? And then next we have arbitrary inference. When we say arbitrary inference, that means you have jumped into a conclusion right away without even thinking of, without even listening to the real points of the arguments from your opponent. Because sometimes, for example, just I'll give you an example of arbitrary inference, okay? For example, if your neighbor would borrow money. And after borrowing money, your neighbor would say that, I'm going to, like pay you the money next week on Friday. And then, of course, you trusted the person because, she's your friend, she's your neighbor. And then come next week on Friday, you waited, but she didn't pay. And then she didn't reply to your messages when you asked her to pay the money. And you found out that your neighbor's no longer living next door. And you don't know where to track your neighbor. And you had your neighbor borrow money from you for about $100,000. And you don't know how to, how to bring your money back from her. So at that point, you're going to think that all neighbors are dishonest. All neighbors are not honest, and I cannot trust anyone because that person has borrowed money from me, and that person was not able to return the money from me, even though she promised she's going to pay me, this week on Friday. So that is arbitrary inference. You're already jumping into conclusion without even thinking, of facts or details of how you can really come up with, like the things about the why thing. Like, why was she able to do that? Do you really think that all neighbors could be really, bad? Or do you think that only that neighbor is bad, but the others are good? Something like that, okay? Don't really generalize something right away. And then selective obstruction. So this is a matter of being able to come up with an argument that you're just going to select the bits of what the person said without even thinking and listening on the other parts of what the person said. So for example, if Facebook is really, like something detrimental and it's very dangerous for people to use and it should be banned. So sometimes some people, another person might probably give a reason that, aside from making people, feel the cyberbullying, the negative effect of cyberbullying, every time we use Facebook, people will say something bad about us, about our appearance, about the things we say, about our clothes, about, especially on TikTok. Even if you know how to dance, some people will not appreciate that, and some people will bash you. Some people will bully you online and will say, oh, you're a bad dancer. Oh, you're ugly. Oh, how wish you weren't able to show your face here on TikTok, here on Facebook. Gosh. So some of the people, they would just attack the arguments from the other person, saying that there are a lot of cyberbullying on Facebook. That's the only thing they attack. That's the only, argument they give. However, what about the other things that are, negative about Facebook? So you're only focusing on one side, okay? Again, do not only focus on one argument or one thing about the things you're saying. You have to also focus that there are other things you can think about that might really give a negative impact or a negative effect in using Facebook or any form of social media platform. So it's not good for you to only give one argument, or it's not good for you to only focus on one argument. Focus on other things. For example, data privacy. Facebook can actually, leak some data and can breach some data, and this data can actually be shared to people. And this would make it easier for hackers to hack your personal information and can steal money from your bank account or can steal money from you based on your personal information, like your email, your location. People can break into your house because they know your location, using Google Map or any kinds of application based on social media that can track your location, and then they can, get anything they want from you at the end of the day. So those are other things you can think about. So do not just select the main points of what you have to say, because there are a lot of things you can think about. Again, research and being able to be prepared very well before you start the debate is very important. Before you join a contest right away, before you join a competition right away, okay? And then this is the same thing with arbitrary inference, so overgeneralization. So I think I will not be able to really dig deeper into that. And then magnification or minimization. This actually means that a person is able to, think that some of the arguments presented by the opposition are not too important. So therefore, they have to say their rebuttals or counter arguments at the last part, even if it's good for you to really start with these little things, okay? Because again, when you counter argue or rebut, you have to start with the fresh new ideas that the person said before you go to the next ideas that he or she said. Always take note, some arguments are repetitive. For example, some things provided by the first person are mentioned again by the second person who's speaking on the opposition side, for example. You have to take note of that. Sometimes they're running out of arguments, so they can repeat it, but you are actually not listening and you think that it's not repetitive, so you rebut it again, even though the first person before you was able to rebut the points, given by the previous speaker. Because sometimes you just have to, rephrase some sentences stated by the first person before them in that team, and then they can still repeat it, even though it doesn't sound repetitive, but it does if you listen to it very carefully. Okay? So again, do not rebut the things or counter-argue the things repetitively. Instead, you have to focus on the new arguments before you come up with the other examples that the person mentioned. Sometimes you only have one argument and then more on substantiation or more examples. So rebut on that argument first before you go to the next example. Okay? Because you can also rebut the examples by giving an example on your side. Okay? If they have given an example, rebut that by giving an example. If they have given an argument, rebut that by giving another argument. Okay? That's how you're going to rebut it well. Okay? Now, we have dichotomous thinking. So it's actually a matter of thinking about whenever something is just too cliche. When we say cliche, it's like thinking that, it's actually not going to be true. What that person is saying from the other side is not going to be true. It has never happened and it will never happen. But don't say that, okay? Some people will actually think that, okay, if it's going to be me, if I'm going to be the mother, I don't think I'm going to abort my child. Do not say that kind of argument, okay? So it's what you think. And what about what other people think? What you think might be different from what other people think. What's good for you might not be good for others. What's pretty for you or beautiful for you might not be pretty for others. So do not say or provide that kind of argument. I will, for example, I agree that abortion should be banned or must be banned because if I become a mother, I don't think I want to be able to do that. I'm a very good person and I'm afraid of God, and I don't think that I will be able to do that to my future child or my future baby. It's very bad and it's very sad. Do not say that because, you're thinking about what you think. But again, we have to think about giving evidences based on contemporary examples, census, surveys, and at the same time, scientific evidences. What you're saying is an evidence based only on your opinion, based on feelings and emotions, not based on those things that I mentioned, okay? Again, proper, solid evidence. Solidify your ground. It's like making a house, establishing a house. How will you be able to build that beautiful, strong house if you're not able to build solid foundation of your house? So how do you make a very strong house? Make sure that the soil is pretty for you to build that house. If the soil, really is too wet and you cannot build a house, then of course put rocks on it. Solid, big rocks. And then little by little, build that foundation before you come up with, the hollow blocks, the cement, and everything. That's the same thing with debating. Okay? Little by little, solidify your ground. Solid evidences. Okay? Now, we have personalization. Kind of the same with dichotomous thinking. Okay? Sometimes it could be related to Latin terms. Let me introduce you to some of these. When we say Latin terms, we have, I'm going to write it down here in our chat box because I'm not sure. I hope you can see it. Okay. We have different fallacies. I'm not going to explain everything, but I'm just going to let you see it. So we have here, okay. I'm not sure if I ever spelled it right. Okay. And then, okay. These are Latin terms. Okay. Oh, why did I ever write M-A-N at the first part? Sorry about that. Okay, hold on. Oh, okay, I see. Because it's actually recognizing that there's no such terms. And then, yeah, it will automatically translate it to English, even if I don't want it to be translated. I think that's what it's doing right now. So the first one is Argumentum Ad Hominem. Just like what I said, attacking the person. Okay? And it's not good. Okay? I think this person who spoke before me, Your Honor, is a lame person. And that's the reason why his arguments are lame. You're attacking the person. It's not good. Argumentum ad verecundiam. It's a Latin term meaning that it's a fallacy. It's not good because it's a fallacy. It's like an opinion-based argument. You're only basing your arguments based on what the person who's not in authority is saying. For example, the Catholic priests said that abortion is not good. Okay. You're talking about Catholic priests. Now, it's a fallacy. It's not good because what can priests do? I mean, we're talking about abortion, which is inside, we're talking about taking the cell of a zygote or an embryo inside the mother's womb, inside her body. Therefore, we are talking about medical things. It is a medical argument that we are focusing on. We're not talking about spiritual or any kinds of arguments. So do not focus on being Catholic, being religious, Catholic priests say it, the pastor say it. Okay, do not say that. That's argumentum ad hominem. You're just saying it because it's what you feel. It's still based on your emotion. Okay? And then we have argumentum ad populum. It's based on the opinion of the people. Okay? So for example, all my classmates say that I am ugly. Therefore, I am ugly. That's true. That's not good because you're basing it from what people say. But what about the expert who's actually looking at you, who's actually like, like for example, what about doctors, for example, dermatologist, people who actually look at your skin to see if your skin looks pretty because beauty has different levels. Your skin could be pretty, which makes you beautiful, something like that. So it doesn't make sense that when most of the population would say that something is true right away. Or if most of the population would say that, something is not true or something is fallacious or, it's a fallacy. So therefore you think that it's not true right away. And that's not good. Okay. There are other forms of, different fallacies or arguments. Okay. But let's not fall into those. Those are examples. All right. And then we have labeling and mislabeling. Okay. When we say labeling and mislabeling, this means that we're actually, incorrectly tagging some arguments based on what the person said, based on what your opponent said. So for example, when your opponent would say that, well, I think that dating should be banned for minors, for those people who are 18 years old below, because this would actually give them like psychological disorder. It would give them anxiety or depression. The moment that their boyfriend would leave them and they cannot handle the pressure, the intensity of, having these like anxiety, depression inside them. And sometimes they like have suicidal thoughts. And at the end of the day, that could give them like the reason for them to suicide. And then you're going to mislabel what the other person said. You're going to say that, oh, so what this previous speaker said before me was that teenagers are actually going to commit suicide because of dating. The other person did not say that. You're just saying that based on what you understand. You have to listen very carefully to what the other person said. Do not label something. You're not, you're giving like, it's an assumption. Assumption is totally different. You're assuming something even though the other person said it. It's like, for example, you're going to tell your friend, you know what, Sandy? I think my crush likes me. And then, your crush didn't even say he likes you. You're just assuming that your crush likes you, right? And then your friend would say, how would you know? Or like, did he ever tell you that he likes you? No, but I think he likes me. I mean, he's always looking at me. He's always smiling at me. And then when I say, hi, George, and then he will always give his best smile and it's so cute. I think he's making all his cute faces for me. Okay, you're assuming, okay? It's not good. Again, do not assume unless stated. Do not assume somebody likes you or do not assume somebody loves you if they didn't say it. Okay, that's easy as labeling and mislabeling, right? So you can only conclude something, label something if the other person said that. If the other person said he loves you, that's correct labeling. If the other person said he likes you, that's correct labeling. But take note, sometimes when you try to label something as, the correct one, the good one, sometimes it's still not, the correct label if the person didn't say, everything you need to hear right then. For example, the person said he loves you. Let's take into context, about love, because I think we can all relate about love, right? So for example, if the person said he loves you, but he didn't say that you're his girlfriend yet, that means he might love you only as a friend. Oh, sorry, friend zone, right? But not really about girlfriend and boyfriend. So maybe he did say that he loves you, but he didn't say that, oh, let's be girlfriends and boyfriends. He didn't say that. So again, do not mislabel. Do not assume unless stated. Okay? So do not mislabel what the other person said by coming into your own conclusion, even if the person didn't really say that initially. Why? Because your opponent would say, for example, if you have mislabeled something, your opponent is going to say, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, I did not say that. I did not say that all teenagers will actually, commit suicide if they engage in dating. I did not say that. I'm saying that whenever they have failed relationships, it's gonna affect their mental health, because if ever their boyfriend will break up with them, that's the time they're gonna be crying. They're not gonna be, they're not gonna be able to move on because they're not mature yet. And that's the time they're gonna have suicidal thoughts and might be able to really commit suicide. So, that's the time that there's going to be a huge because you jumped into something. You're going to accuse someone of saying something even if that person has not said anything. Okay? So now let's go to tunnel vision. By the way, do we have any questions so far? Any questions that you guys want to ask? Anyone? I think we have to call names. I don't know. So they're not responding. Antien Nam. Any questions? Biang Wang. I'm not sure how to read it. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay. We have Lin Fan. Do you have any questions, guys?
No, we're all clear. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. All right. Thank you. Now let's go to tunnel vision. Okay. When we say tunnel vision, it's just like if you have seen a horse. So, the horse will have this kind of way without even, looking at both directions. So it's not good for you not to focus on other things. It's still the same thing with what I mentioned earlier. And then bias explanation, still kind of the same with what I said about dichotomous thinking. And then mind reading, being able to think about, ahead of what the person should supposed to say, even if you have not really heard or listened to his or her examples or arguments yet. That's not good. That is still falling under labeling and mislabeling. Okay. Now to the next part here, we have, so 5 principles of good argument. Okay, so this is kind of the same with the main parts of the argument. We have structure, relevance, acceptability, sufficiency, and rebuttal. All right, so let's start with the first one here. Okay, so structure is the same thing. Okay, it's like, your motion, all right, your sentence as to what you agree or disagree about. And then the next one is relevance. So it's actually about how important your argument is to the motion or to the premise. Okay. So for example, if let's just say that, for example, the topic is about not being able to bring cell phones at work. Okay. Because it will not make you productive if you bring your cell phone at work. So let's say cell phones should be banned or must be banned because people will have a decline in productivity at their work. Okay, so if that's the topic, then of course you have to bring arguments that are relevant about it. Okay, so maybe you're gonna bring topic about the positive effects and the negative effects. Sometimes some people will, do a segue. When you say a segue, instead of going to the direction, to the destination as to where you want to lead your argument, sometimes it's going to go to a different route, and it's not good. Okay, do not do a U-turn. All right, or do not do a detour whenever you provide your own to lead the judge and the audience to the arguments you have. Okay, so for example, if it's about cell phones and then, all of a sudden you're going to be talking about, let's say iPods, or you're going to be talking about For example, karaoke. So sometimes it doesn't make sense. Okay, for example, you're going to say, so it's not good because, cell phones are distracting, just like karaoke. If you hear someone, singing a song in the middle of the night, it's disturbing you. It's going to disturb you and it's going to distract you. It's not going to be giving you any focus at all. So where is the connection of karaoke to cell phones? Okay. So again, provide examples based on the premise, based on the motion, not examples that will, give a segue or give a different route or a detour to your destination as to where you want to lead your arguments, okay? So again, relevance, all right? And then acceptability. Let the people, let the viewers, let the judge accept or, let them be persuaded to your arguments by making sure that you have very good substantiation. Okay, you have very good evidences, you have very good examples, so it still falls to evidence. Okay, again, do as much research as you can to make sure that you support the kinds of arguments that you have presented or the kind of rebuttals that you have presented in the debate. Okay, so what's a good argument that is acceptable enough? Of course, a good argument is not only based on opinion, but it should also have facts. And at the same time, you have to maybe bring more examples, not only contemporary examples, but examples that have happened before, maybe something on the news, something like that. And then sufficiency. So it should be sufficient enough, okay? Sometimes some people would only say their arguments within, for example, if you have 5-minute speech, sometimes you're going to be able to only say your arguments within 3 minutes, and it's not good because there are a lot of things that you can say actually. Okay. For example, if you're able to bring 3 arguments and then another person already spoke before you. So before you bring your 3 arguments, you can actually rebut the things that he said first before you bring the 3 new arguments or the 3 fresh arguments that you have. So that you can really utilize your whole time. Okay. Again, do not leave the debate hanging. Okay. You have to make sure that you provide as much details and data as possible. All right. Just like, for example, when you fill up a form. So if ever you're going to go to a bank and when the person asks you if you're going to open an account, the person will not open your account in a bank if your data is not complete. The same thing in the debate. You have to make sure that you utilize all the 5 minutes, but not go beyond it because again, it's going to be an in your part. It's going to be an X in your part. There's going to be a huge deduction for that. Time management is very important also. And then we have rebuttals, of course, the things that you say that are against the things that the other person said or against the things that your opponent mentioned, okay? Those are the things that are also very important. And then, of course, those are the things that we have here. Now, before going to the next slide, do we have any questions from the team so far? Okay, you seem to be very quiet. After I'm done with this debate, okay. Let's try to see. Yes, Kanji? Oh, who's Andy? Okay, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a tiny stupid question.
No, I don't think any
really,
question is considered stupid. Yeah.
Well, I don't really understand the format of our contest.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna have okay, for example, the format of the contest is still the same thing. We have 3 rounds for this. So for example, in the first round, 2 people will be talking. Okay, so first speaker from the positive or the government side, and then first speaker on the negative or the opposition side. Okay, and then the next part of that, the second round, is the second speaker from the government or the proposition team will talk, and then the second person from the opposition or the negative side will talk, and then still the same second round. Okay, we have the third person from the proposition or the positive team will talk, and then the third person from the negative or the opposition team will talk. That is for the whole second round. And then for the third round, for the debate, okay, and this is in one debate competition, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. So in this one debate competition, that's the first and the second round. And then for the third round, we have, it depends on the team as to who will do the summary. So the summary will only be, the conclusion of what your team has just, provided, what arguments that your team has provided. So that person will only summarize it, and that person can also give another argument or another rebuttal or counter argument. So that last person who's going to speak at the last round can be the first speaker on the positive side and the first speaker on the negative side or the opposition side. So that's how the debate will happen. Okay. So I think Miss Nguyet and Miss Vu will also send the guidelines of how the first, second, and the third round will be done, right? And I think if I'm not mistaken, you have 5-minute speeches to present your arguments, to present your counter arguments or your rebuttals and your examples. And then also the POI, the point of information, is a question that you can, it's an advantage for you to ask questions in the middle of someone's speech. You cannot do that in the first round, okay? So if the first person is talking in the first round, and then if the first person also in the negative or the opposition side is talking on the first round, there will be no questions yet during that round, no POI. But on the second round, the second speaker on the government or the proposition and the second speaker on the opposition or the negative side can ask each other questions in the middle of their speeches. The same thing with the third person in the positive side or the proposition side and the third person on the negative side or the opposition side. They can ask each other point of information or questions. But the point of information can only be good for 1 minute. You can only ask questions for 1 minute or clarify something within 1 minute, and you can no longer extend after that. And your question, you should ask that within the first 4 minutes or first 3 minutes, sorry, because at the fourth minute, if ever your speech will be good for 5 minutes, at the fourth minute, you can no longer ask your questions. So you have to ask as many questions as you can within the first 3 minutes during the second round. Okay. So here's the thing also, by the way, thank you for that, Kanji, by the way. Here's the thing. If you're going to be dividing yourselves into whoever gets to speak first, second, third, and last, make sure that you're able to, divide your team well, as to according to who's good with arguments, who's good with rebuttals, something like that. Okay. You should really discuss it very well amongst yourselves. All right. That's the most important thing. Okay. So do you have any other questions? I'm sorry. Did I answer your question? Kanji? Was that good?
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It was enough. Lovely.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Kanchi, or anything you'd like to ask or anything you'd like to clarify?
Not really. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sure. Any other questions we have from the team, from the people, who joined us tonight? Any other questions aside from Kanchi? Thank you very much, Kanchi. That was very nice of you to ask the first question. Thank you. Okay. Now going back. Okay. So the rebuttal is also very important. So how will we be able to give very good rebuttals? When we say rebuttals, you will rebut the things that the previous speaker said. What's the difference between arguments and rebuttals? Okay. Arguments are your explanation and your evidence as to why you disagree or agree with the premise or the motion. Okay. Rebuttals or counter arguments are the things that you say that are against the things that were said by your opponent. So you will go against what he or she said. Okay? So for example, I'm going to provide you an example for an argument. So for example, using of cell phones at school should be banned because students will not be able to listen very well to what the teachers are discussing or saying whenever they bring their cell phones with them because they will be distracted. For example, if their boyfriend will always chat with them on Facebook, and even if they turn it on silent mode or even if they only, put it on a vibrate mode, so it will vibrate, they will always, pick that cell phone from their bag or from their pocket. They will look at it and their teacher would be mad at them because of not being able to listen. And when the teacher asks them questions, they're not able to ask questions. So that is your argument. But your rebuttal is, for example, you mentioned that. So the other person can rebut that by saying, I totally disagree with what the other person said, Because when you bring your phone with you, as what he mentioned, he said that if you put it on silent mode, you will still be distracted. How can you be distracted if your phone is on the silent mode or if your phone has been turned off? I don't think there's a reason for you to be distracted. Otherwise, if you didn't turn it off, like what he said, that you're just going to be putting it on vibrate mode, then I think it's really a reason for you to be distracted. But if ever you turn it off, you turn it on a silent mode, will you hear any sound? Will you still feel any vibrate sound or, any vibration on you? No, because it's turned off. No, because it's silent. So that is your rebuttal, your counter argument. That's how you're going to provide it. First, you have to say this phrase, okay? Do not forget. Your Honor, Mr. Chair, Ms. Judge, I disagree with what the previous speaker said before me because that's how you're going to say your rebuttals, okay? And, of course, after you rebut the things that the previous person said, that's the time you're going to be presenting your new ideas, your new explanation, your new arguments, okay? That's the time you're going to say, now that I have presented my points as to why I disagree with the previous speaker, so now I'm going to be providing my sets of ideas or arguments in this debate. Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Your Honor, I would like to let you know that when we bring cell phones, the first thing that will happen is we get updated. When we say get updated, it's not only about being updated, like about your friends, about your love life, your relationship, but being updated with what is happening with your family members. For example, what if there's a medical emergency? Your mother was rushed to the hospital. How will you be able to know that without your cell phone? That's the reason why gadgets or cell phones were invented in the first place, for us to be, updated at all times. So why would we ban students to bring their cell phones with them at school, right? Second, when we don't allow people to bring their cell phones with them, what's going to happen is you're still going to be distracted. You're still going to be thinking that, oh, how I wish I had my cell phone. Because what? Young generations nowadays are used to bringing their cell phones. So, that kind of psychological effect that you're bringing the person, if ever you have the cell phone with you, you will not think too much and you will not be worried too much. You're not going to be thinking about your phone. Because if you don't have your phone with you, the more you think about it, the more it will give you a negative psychological mental, unstableness in you. Because you're going to think that, oh, when am I going to use my phone? When will this class end? I wish this class will end right away because I want to be able to use my phone. Right now, I'm stuck here in class. The class is good for 1 hour and I'm still going to be here at school until 5 p.m. What a bummer. So see, those are the kinds of negative things that we're giving people. So why not allow them to bring their cell phones? Now, the third argument I want to emphasize, Your Honor, is when we talk about the importance of bringing a cell phone, it's not only about being updated. It's also about being able to express yourself. And this is good for mental health. What's going to happen if people can take pictures? Some people, they find it beautiful to bring their cell phones with them to take pictures of nature, of flowers, of the garden at school. So it's good because, it's not only making you happy because it's your hobby, it's your hobby, it's your passion, but also it's going to make you happy because at the later part, you're going to tag, your friends, you're going to post them on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's a matter of self-expression. And the more you express yourself, the more self-expression you do every day, the more happier you become and the more free from stress you will feel and experience. And isn't that better, Your Honor? Isn't that good? That's how you're going to present your arguments. You have to emphasize, persuade the judge, persuade the audience, emphasize that it's your argument. You have to say, the third argument I have is, why not? Because if we do this, this will blah, blah, blah. It's good because if we do this, this will blah. It's bad because if we do this, this will blah, blah, blah. That's how you're going to present it. Make sure you say these are your arguments, okay? The first argument I have is, the second argument I have is, the third argument I have is, and then do not forget the evidences, okay? And do not mention the word rebuttal, okay, or rebut. That's my cue, or that's the cue of any judge to say that you rebutted against their point. Or you can say, I disagree. You can say, I disagree with what the previous person said because that's already your rebuttal, okay? That means that you're already rebutting the points he said, okay? Or you can say, I think that what the person said is kind of misleading, Your Honor. That means you're also rebutting it because you're saying that his points are misleading, okay? And by the way, do not ever say that you agree to what the person said. For example, during the debate, you're the negative or the opposition side, but you seem to be like, you seem to feel that, oh, what the proposition or the government side or the positive team are saying, I think must be true. I think I no longer have arguments. I think I'm also going to agree. Do not ever be submissive. Do not submit yourself to follow or to agree what they said. Do not say these words. Do not say, I think I agree to what the previous person said in the other side or on the other team, because do not say that. That means you surrender. You have raised your flag, your white flag, and say, da, 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 da. You surrender. Do not do that, okay? So make sure that you're brave enough. Be courageous to stand on your ground, okay? To believe in what you said. Because otherwise, if you do not believe in what you're saying, how will other people believe in you, okay? So that's the first thing that you should do. Believe in yourself. Nothing is impossible if you believe in yourself, and if you do your very best, okay? So do not say you agree. Do not say they are correct. Do not say they are true or their arguments are true. Do not say that. That's a big no-no, because that means you surrender, you submit, and you quit. And you don't want to say anything else. Do not say that, okay? You can say these. Let me type it here. I'm going to type it, okay? So the phrase is... Okay. Assuming but not conceding. Oh, I think the word conceding might be, maybe the spelling is wrong. Let me just make sure. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Oh, got it. It's really wrong spelling. So sorry about that. Okay. So assuming but not conceding. Okay. Assuming but not conceding. All right. So you have to say that. Do not say it's true, it's correct. Okay. Do not say they're right. Do not say that. Okay. You have to say, assuming but not conceding that bringing of cell phones and allowing children to bring their cell phones at school is bad. However, we totally believe it's not bad at all because of the following arguments or because of the following reasons. First, so that's how you're going to present it. Okay. So it's somehow telling that though it's true, though their arguments are true, but I don't believe you because I have these arguments. So that's the meaning of this phrase, okay? So those are the cue or the phrases that we need to consider. Now, first is attack new arguments first. Remind the judge of your opponent's argument. Restate your position. By the way, do we have any questions? We still have lots of time. Any questions? No questions so far? Okay. So... all right. Now we have attack new arguments first. Okay, this is what I mentioned earlier. You have to attack the new arguments first, because sometimes, again, some people, their arguments are repetitive. What the first person said, by the way, if there are 3 teams in one group, first speaker, divide your arguments well with your second speaker and your third speaker. For example, if you have 6 arguments, you can divide it into 2 per person. 2 arguments for the first person, 2 arguments for the second person, 2 arguments for the third person. If you have 3 arguments per person, much better. That's even better, okay? 3 arguments for the first person, 3 arguments for the second person, 3 arguments for the third person, okay? That's even better if you have 3. But if you have 2, that's still okay, as long as you have more than 1, okay? That will be more than enough, okay? Do not just give one argument, okay? Please do not just give one argument. Make it 2 or more as much as possible. 3 is best, 2 is better, right? Okay. So, for example, there was one debate before about Facebook, about social media. The topic was social media brings negative, brings bad more than good. And then this other person has a new argument, the opposition side has a new argument. So the opposition side that said that, I think it's not the opposition, I think it's the proposition or the positive side, yeah. So they said that this can actually have data breach or data, this can leak data privacy. A lot of information will be shared throughout all the people across the globe, and they will know your information. They can hack into the system, gather your information and steal something from you, especially your money on your account. And then the other people were not able to rebut it. They only focus on the consistent arguments that was presented by the first person, the second person, and then the third person, which was, of course, it's not going to be psychologically good for people because there are lots of cyberbullying that's happening on social media. That's what they always rebut. They were not able to rebut on the new, fresh argument presented by the third speaker on the government side or the proposition side, which was about data privacy. So that's what I mentioned, that it's not good for you to only focus on something else because you think that, oh, it's not really important, it's data privacy. Who cares about data privacy? But it's very important because if data is lost and if data is breached, we will all lose the money that we have worked for so long, that we have worked hard for so many years, and it's not good. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to say. Always make sure that you attack fresh new arguments before you try to attack the other things that the other person said, which might be repetitive. Okay? And then remind the judge of your opponent's argument. Okay, so you can say this, for example, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, Madam Chair, I think as what the previous person said, he said that, they've always been repeating this, Your Honor. They always say that Facebook and other social media platform is a way for you to be cyberbullied. They're always telling that. Well, of course, we cannot erase the fact that cyberbullying has been there for so many years, for so long, even before social media, even before the cyber age, the technology that we have nowadays. We have been bullied our entire lives, even without technology first, even before in 90s, in 80s. Bullying has not ever stopped. And now they're still talking about bullying. I know it's very important because it will take a toll on your mental health. It will take a toll on your psychological health. But what I'm trying to say here is social media is not the only reason why people bully others. It's because it's already, the habit of a person who's bullying others for so long. And it doesn't only stop and begin with social media, Your Honor. And they're always saying that. I think we have to end with that kind of argument or that kind of mentality, Your Honor. Because these are the positive things that we bring or that social media can bring. That's why we believe it should not be banned. We believe that it's not only bad things, or it's not more on bad things, but more on good things that social media can bring us. So that's what you have to do, okay? Persuade. Be confident, okay? And then restate your position, okay? Always go back to the motion. Always go back to your belief, okay? That's why, Your Honor, we say that at the end of this day, it's really not bad to use Facebook at all, provided that we only limit the children and the teenagers to use Facebook in a matter of about 4 hours maximum in a day. Because, again, it will also affect their health because using cell phones and other gadgets have radiation that can be one of the leading causes of cancer. It can also affect their health. So there's a way for parents to track how long their children have been using their cell phones or any social media platform, Your Honor. And this is by using this kind of app. This app is called blah, 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 something like that. Okay, you can present it that way. And then break down your rebuttal into two choices for the judge. Okay, so always bring the negative effect and the positive effect. But if you're the opposition, bring more of the benefit or bring more of if the motion is like something negative, then of course you have to bring more positive effect about it. For example, cell phones should be banned. If you're the opposition, then of course you will not agree to it. You agree that cell phones should not be banned, that cell phones should be allowed. So therefore you will bring the advantages or the benefits of bringing cell phones. If you're the proposition or the positive team, if the motion says cell phones should be banned, then of course you agree that it should be banned. And you have to focus on the disadvantages of using cell phones and bringing cell phones. Okay? And then we have explained the reasons why your argument is best. Okay? So you have to really, face the judge, face the people and say that, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, we believe that we win this debate. Okay? So you have to really tell that. You have to tell that for we believe that we win this debate because we have all these arguments that can really lead to the benefits of using cell phones. First, if we use cell phones, we have the capacity to be updated. Second, if we use cell phones, we will have self-expression, which is really good for our mental or psychological health. Third, when we don't allow people to use cell phones, they will be more distracted and they will, have negative thoughts and become really like worried and more anxious the moment they don't have their cell phones with them because they're used to bringing or using their cell phones almost all the time. Okay? And then, of course, show the judge why this argument is a voting issue which you won. Still the same thing with what I said. You have to say, at the end of this day, we win this debate because. So provide your substantiation, your examples, okay, your evidence. And then the last one is give a concluding statement urging the judge to choose your argument. Okay, so of course, that's the conclusion. When you say at the end of the day, so you can, use that. You can say at the end of the day, that means you're already concluding the things that you mentioned in your speech. Okay, and by the way, you can also use this phrase aside from the at the end of the day. We also have, let me just think. It was actually in my mind earlier, but it was gone. It flew somewhere else, so I have to think a little bit quick. Okay, all right. So you can say this one. All right. So if you're already done mentioning your speech, you can say, and with that, I rest my case. Or with that, I end my case. You can use that phrase as well, which means that you're already done with your speech and you have nothing to do or nothing to add up to what you said. Okay? So you can say, I rest my case, I end my case. Or you can say, and with that, I have nothing else to say, Your Honor. You can also say that. All right? Okay. So that's it. And then, of course, all right, the next part is, do you guys have any questions? Okay, that's actually the next slide. Any questions so far? This is the time wherein you guys can ask me questions. Otherwise, I will be asking you questions if you will not ask me questions. So who would it be? Let me see.
Oh, I do have a question, Miss.
Is that still Kanchi? Is that still you?
My name is Hey.
Hey? Oh,
Hey,
okay.
yeah.
All right, sure. Go ahead.
It's actually two questions. So the first one would be, so if I have a lot of things to say in my speech, so that I am not able to receive any POI, so do you think it would be the big problem? And the second question is, do you mind sharing with us some criteria regarding Bitu debate contest? Is this more like argument based, or it's like more a little bit of English based as well? Yeah, that's it.
Sure, no problem. All right, let's start with your first question. If ever you have already provided all your arguments and you have nothing else to say, and then at the same time, like for example, there was no POI raised by the other team, you can actually provoke them to ask you questions. You can say, all right, so well, give me your examples, okay? All right, for example, if we don't give them, cell phones, if we don't let them use cell phones, they're going to be more distracted. They're going to be more worried. At the end of the day, they're going to be asking, when will this class end? I'm still going to be here at school at around 5 p.m. I really want to use my phone. I cannot stand not using my phone. I cannot stand not bringing my phone with me. I cannot stand not holding my phone. So it's going to, give a huge problem to their mental health, thinking almost all the time about their cell phones. And while I'm talking about this, Your Honor, and while I'm giving my examples, since it seems that they're not able to, ask me any questions yet, the other team or my opponents. So I want to be able to take this time for me to ask them if they have any questions for me while I'm explaining my examples. Do you guys have any questions for me? For the second speaker, for example, if you're the second speaker, okay, the second speaker on the other side, on the proposition team, if you're the opposition, you can ask that. You can say, do you have any questions? And then if they will say no, but sometimes they're gonna be provoked. They're gonna say that, oh yeah, we have a question regarding about your example. And that's the time, sure, go ahead. And that's the time, you can add up to the time that you have. Okay. But if you have a lot of things to say, and for example, the other person still has a POI, you can say, no, thank you. But it's best for you to really accept at least one question coming from them. Because if you're not going to be totally accepting any questions from them, then it's also going to be like a negative mark on your end. Okay? So it's really best for you to also accept the POI from them. At least one. Okay? Not really all. For example, you have already accepted one POI or question, then you can just say, if they still have more questions, you can just say, no, thank you. You can just say, no, thank you. But be very, very keen, because sometimes you're going to be, they're going to be distracting you while you're talking. Some people, they're going to be saying, hey, I have a question. I have another question. And then they're going to say, question. They will keep on asking you question and saying question. That's some of the people's strategy to distract you so that you will not be able to really explain everything, that you're telling or saying that you're supposed to say. So you can say this phrase. By the way, you can say that, okay, I'm not sure if I have, okay, hold on. Let me just make sure the spelling is right. Okay. All right. Okay, very good. So yeah, that's correct. Okay, so you can say, stop, you're badgering me. You can say that phrase, okay? For example, they're always saying, question, hey, take my question. Hey, you have not accepted any question from me yet. Hey. If they keep on doing that, that's already, a form of like distracting you, or a form of like making you not to be focused at all on what you're saying. So you can say, stop, you're badgering me. Or you can say, stop, Your Honor, they're badgering me. So that's going to be a mark also on their end. Okay, they're going to be subtracted some points from that for not being able to respect you. Because again, at the end of the day, we should be respectful to the other person. Okay, this is a formal way to clash our ideas, not to be disrespectful with, as people, we should be respectful enough. All right. And then for the second question that you mentioned, I think we have here the following criteria. Let me just go over it because I'm not able to memorize it, but it's more of like coherence. Okay. We have coherence, and then solidity, and then we have substantiation, then we have grammar. Grammar is the least one. It's only 5%. I'm just going to make sure that I have here, hold on. Just want to make sure that I have here, like, I think I have to get the link of that, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. It's actually here in our group chat. We have the contest here, and then it's here. Because I have to actually scroll up a little bit. Just give me one quick second. Okay, here's the format. Let me just read it so that I can be very specific with the criteria in terms of like the percentage of each, of each criteria that I did mention to you. So we have here, okay, coherence, 40%, solidity, 40%, substantiation, 15%, grammar, 5%, for a total of 100%. Okay, coherence, which means the step-by-step, like step-by-step arguments that you have presented. Okay, it should be, it should be in order, or as much as possible, it should be linear. Okay, you have to arrange it in a way that you're going to be talking to your, you're going to be mentioning your arguments in a very smooth way, that it's going to be linear. Okay, it's going to be from general to specific. Okay, that should be like how we're going to do it. And then at the same time, we have solidity. So this means that your evidences that you presented, okay, and then at the same time, like for substantiation, this means your example that you have presented. Okay, so those are the things that we have. And then grammar, we're not going to be really 100% focusing on your grammar, although it's still part of the criteria, which is of course still 5%. But again, in this debate, we're going to be focusing more on your arguments, your rebuttals or your counter arguments, plus your examples and more evidences that you have provided to support what you have just mentioned or just said. So those are the things we have, right? So thank you very much for that. Hey, did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Very helpful. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you. And do you have any other questions for me?
Personally, I don't.
Okay, sure. So thank you. And then how about for the rest? Let's say here, do we have any other questions from the rest? Because if not, I'm going to be picking a person who's going to be like, I'm going to be giving like a debate topic, and that person will try to provide me at least one counter argument and one rebuttal. So, okay, hold on. We have here. Kindly have a question. Already listen carefully, but one team will send a group leader to debate for the rest of the round. Because I saw so many formats, so just want to make sure. I don't really get the gist. Okay, I already listened carefully, but one team will send a group leader, okay, to debate for the rest of the round. Because I saw so many formats, so just want to make sure. You mean, who sent this question? Tran?
Yeah, me.
Yeah, can you explain?
Okay.
Yeah,
so the other debate I used to watch before, they send like many person, like the first one gonna talk about like part A, and then the other gonna talk part B and part C. But in here, I already hear what you're saying. But when I image, it's kindly like you are maybe one person gonna handle everything, and the other just like supporting the idea at the background before the contest start. Is that what you mean? Or it can be like the first one gonna explain like the positive idea or the negative idea, and then the other gonna like support the other or like ask the question about the other group, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I see. I get what you mean. All right. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. So, for example, if the first speaker of that team, the first speaker will, if ever, it actually depends on what side you're in. So, if ever you're on the proposition or the positive side, so if you're going to be the first speaker, so again, you're going to be providing the definition. First, you're going to say the topic. Second, you're going to be defining the words from the topic that are difficult to understand. Okay, or even if it's not difficult to understand, you still need to define the motion or the premise. And then third, you need to provide your arguments. So basically, you cannot rebut something else yet because you're the first speaker on the government side on the proposition. So meaning you're the first speaker among all the other people, okay, among all the teams. So you cannot rebut. You can only present your argument. So you can say, for example, let's say, for example, if you have 5 arguments or let's say 6 arguments. So if you're the first speaker, again, you're going to be saying the topic, defining the motion or the premise, and then you're going to be saying your entire 6 rebuttals. And then you can say it this way. Your Honor, in our team here in the proposition or the government side, we have 6 arguments. I'm going to be talking about the first 3 arguments and the other 3 arguments. I'm going to be talking about the first 2 arguments, and the other 4 arguments will be mentioned by my second speaker and my third speaker in my team. So my 6 arguments are the following. So you're going to name it. Okay, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And then after that, you're going to say, now for the first 2 arguments, for the first argument, as what I mentioned, it's not good for us to do this because blah, blah, blah. So you're going to explain your first and second arguments, okay? So you can mention, the 6 of it, and then you can just tell the judge that you're going to be focusing only on 2 arguments because you don't have time. And then the other 2 or 4 arguments will be mentioned by your second and third speaker, okay? So in reality, you're still supporting each other because you're on the same team. That's your purpose. You should support each other. And then you should not have any misleading thoughts or any segue or detour. So that's why you have to come up with arguments that you can, divide amongst yourselves. So if you're the leader, you should divide the arguments to your second and third speaker and let them focus on that by providing more evidences and by providing more examples about those arguments. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you very much for your question. That was Tran. Okay. Thank you, Tran. Any other questions from the team? No more questions? Okay.
I'm here.
All right. Awesome.
I'm Anna from Team 4, and I would like to ask you that, is it okay if we use some resources like PowerPoints or images to support our argument?
For the PowerPoint, I think it's still okay, but most of the time for the debate competitions, we no longer have PowerPoints. But what you can do is you can bring with you index cards, the small, a little bit hard type of card where you can write down your answers, okay? And then my tip is bring with you empty cards or empty papers or, for example, just a regular notebook. You can use that to write what your opponents are saying so that you can rebut against them the moment you try to speak. Or you can ask a POI the moment they're speaking in the middle of their speech. Okay? So you can do that. So, for example, if you really want to create a PowerPoint, maybe you can do that by talking amongst yourselves first, by talking within your team members as to what your arguments are. Maybe you can do that. But in terms of already, mentioning your side, you can just, present it the way, by bringing with you those documents. As long as you have, you have to mention only not only contemporary examples, but at the same time, you're also going to be talking and using census, surveys, and at the same time, medical researches, any kinds of examples to support your claim. Again, some facts and some contemporary examples. That's the only thing that you need to mention in your debate. Sorry. I think I lost my air. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's the only thing that we need to do whenever we support or whenever we have evidences that we're going to say on top of the arguments we have. So that's the only thing. So I think because if you're going to be doing a PowerPoint, I think you're going to be making lots of, maybe you're going to be bulleting it out, and then I think we will really not have the time to look at it. We'll listen to you. I think it's best to just, focus on really listening to your arguments. So anyway, most of the judges are very attentive in terms of jotting what you're saying. Just like me, I jot everything you're saying, even your expression. I can write it as fast as I can. So it depends also. So yeah, I think it's best to not just have any PowerPoint at all. So thank you for your question. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any other questions? Anne, right? Anna? Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, no more. Thank you.
No. All right. Thank you very much. So yeah, how about let's have one last question because I think we still have 4 minutes. Let's have one last question from the team. Any other person who would like to ask?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, hi. So, I'm a little confused about the point of personalization. Is that if I give some really personal example, which is related to my personal experiences, is that point encouragingly accepted in debate?
Not really, because it's more of like your experience. It's best if you can provide experience according to what you have observed from other people. Because, for example, if you're sick, for example, this is like a debate topic. If the person is sick, the person should not go to school. And then you're going to say, like for me, if I'm sick, I'm not going to be going to school. That's more of your experience. And the reason why it's not really advisable for you to give your own, example, your own experience, it's because we have different levels of, like pain tolerance, okay? For example, if the topic is about not going to school because you don't feel good, you're sick. Some people, even if they're sick, they still have good pain tolerance. They can tolerate the pain, even if they don't feel well. They can still go to school, okay? So what's not tolerable for you might be tolerable for others. What's not, what's the feeling of unlikeliness for you might not be unlikeliness for others. So maybe you can provide an example of your neighbor. For example, my neighbor, he has had fever for 1 week and he was not able to go to this hospital and he forced himself to go to school. And you know what happened? He collapsed. And because of that, he died because he was dehydrated for 1 week and nobody even dared or, nobody even cared to take him to the hospital. And they even, his parents didn't even bother to encourage him or to require him to stay at home for him to recover before he can really go to school. And look at what happened. He died. And the findings, the autopsy report said that because he was dehydrated, because he didn't really had, he was not able to eat a lot. He was not able to drink lots of fluids or water in him. So he died after that. So it's really best not to be able to go to school if you feel sick. So you can point that. Okay. Again, it's better not to provide your own examples. Okay. Just provide other examples like your neighbors, examples like, based on your observation that were really very dangerous or detrimental and, very negative and it should not be done or it should be done. Okay. Make sense? Did I answer your question?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Sure. Can I have your name again, please? You are?
Vo.
Vo. Okay.
Yeah, Vo. Yeah, just
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Vo, for your question. Do you have any other questions for me?
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So, by the way, I think I want to ask the rest if they have any questions, but I think we only have 1 minute before we can really completely end our class right now. So do not worry because we are still going to meet tomorrow. So if ever you have additional questions that you want to be asking me, I can go ahead and answer that for you. And tomorrow I'm going to be testing how well you learned a lot from the topics that we discussed today. So since tomorrow is our second round, we have more than, 1 hour to talk. Let's go and have some little bit of a debate tomorrow. I'm going to be providing a very common debate topic. I'm going to randomly pick one of you guys to rebut against my points. So I'm going to go with one person first, rebut and arguments. I'm going to try to check your arguments and how you present your counter rebuttals or counter arguments. And then after that, we can, have two people from another team and one from me and then another person, who will join me. And then maybe 3 and 3, something like that. So let's just see, I'm going to come up with different debate topics which are very relatable based on our society or our community. Okay. And then that's the time that I'm going to be trying to see. It's like a test to see your skills, your knowledge from the things that we have talked about tonight. All right. So let's not forget this last slide that I have here with you guys. So it's coming from the French moralist and essayist. He actually also won a lot of Pulitzer's Award, and he's being awarded with a lots of contribution about his poems and his, societal essays about the world, the economy, and all that. He said it is better to debate a question without settling it than to settle a question without debating it. So he is Joseph Kuba, and he won some awards in 1996 from his poems or essays called as Pensée of Hubert. So those are the things, that was the thing that he said. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you for your questions. Again, tomorrow I'll be